My wife handed me her hospital bill at breakfast, demanding I pay $9,340. Line 4 said, "Emergency contact, Grant Pearson," not my name. The paper was thick, medical grade, Northwestern Memorial Hospital letterhead, the kind that doesn't tear easily, even when your hands are shaking. Blue stripes ran horizontally across each page, 6 pages total. I flipped to the discharge summary, my coffee going cold on the table beside me. "Nathan, did you hear me?" Becca's voice cut through my focus. "I need you to handle this. I was serving patients when I got hurt. The least you can do is—" "Line 4, I said quietly. My finger traced the printed text. "Emergency contact, Grant Pearson, 312-555-0147. Silence. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a car door slammed. "Who the hell is Grant Pearson?" I looked up at her. "And why would you list him instead of me?" Becca's face did something I'd seen 1,000 times in the ER. The micro-expression that comes right before a lie. He works in medical sales. He was there when I fell. It was just easier to—" "You listed him as your emergency contact, Becca?" I kept my voice level, clinical, the way I'd been trained. "If you'd coded on that table, if your heart had stopped, they would have called him, not me, your husband of 23 years. "Nathan, you're being dramatic." She reached for the papers. "It's just paperwork. Can you please just—" I pulled the stack back. Page 3, admission time, 2:47 a.m. "You told me you went to the ER around 8 p.m., after evening rounds." It took a while to get seen. You know how emergency rooms are? I know exactly how emergency rooms are. I'm the chief of one. "Admitted at 2:47 a.m., I read aloud. "That's not a while. That's 6.5 hours after you claimed you arrived." I flipped to the next page. "And you're presenting complaint, right here. Patient reports fell during argument with intimate partner." "Becca, who were you arguing with at 2:47 in the morning?" She stood up. Her chair scraped against the tile floor. "I don't have to explain myself to you. Just pay the bill. The bill that lists another man as your next of kin." "Stop being so possessive. Grant is a colleague, nothing more." I looked down at the papers again. My training kicked in, pattern recognition, differential diagnosis. This was data. This was evidence. This was telling me something I didn't want to diagnose. But the presenting symptoms were clear. 3 hours earlier, I'd been covered in someone else's blood. "BP's dropping, 80/40. "I need 2 more units, Linda, and get me a chest tube tray, now." The trauma bay at 3 a.m. is controlled chaos. Gunshot wound to the chest. 22-year-old male. Somebody's son. The monitors screamed their warnings, high-pitched beeps that meant we were losing him. "Dr. Hayes, pneumothorax confirmed," one of the residents called out. My hands moved on autopilot. 25 years of training compressed into seconds. Scalpel, incision between the ribs, the hiss of air escaping where it shouldn't be. Tube insertion, the satisfying resistance of tissue giving way to proper technique. "There, lungs re-expanding." I watched the monitor. "SATs coming up, 92, 94. Linda Kowalski, my ER nurse manager, caught my eye across the gurney. She'd been with me for 12 years. She knew what I was thinking before I said it. "Nice work, everyone," I said to the team. "First, do no harm. Sometimes that means acting fast. Sometimes it means knowing when to wait. Tonight, we acted fast. And this young man gets to see tomorrow." The resident, Chen, second year, nodded, absorbing the lesson. "What are the presenting symptoms we should watch for post-tube thoracostomy, Dr. Hayes?" "What are the presenting symptoms?" I repeated, teaching mode engaged even at 3 in the morning. "Tell me what you're looking for, Dr. Chen." "Respiratory distress, subcutaneous emphysema, signs of infection." "Good. What else?" "Change in mental status, increased work of breathing." "Exactly. In medicine, we listen to what the patient is showing us, not what we want to see. Pattern recognition. You see the symptoms, you make the diagnosis, you act." I stripped off my gloves. The snap of latex echoed in the suddenly quieter bay. "The patient tells you everything. You just have to listen." The young man on the gurney groaned, fighting the sedation. Alive. We'd saved him. I walked to the locker room, scrubbed sticky with blood and betadine. My locker door hung slightly open. Someone had taped an envelope to it. Northwestern Memorial Hospital letterhead. I pulled it down, felt the weight of it. Thick, multiple pages inside. The clock on the wall said 3:17 a.m. My shift ended in 13 minutes. I shoved the envelope into my bag, drove home in the pre-dawn darkness, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened it just as Becca came downstairs, hair wet from the shower, humming something under her breath. "Morning," she said brightly, too brightly. "Oh, good, you found the bill. I need you to handle that today." And that's when I saw his name, Grant Pearson. Saturday afternoon. The house was quiet. Becca said she was working late. Another surgery that couldn't wait. Emergency consult, something. I'd stopped listening to the details months ago. Maybe longer. I was looking for her insurance card. She'd asked me to find it earlier in the week, said she couldn't locate hers. I checked the usual spots. Her purse, the desk drawer, the filing cabinet. Nothing. Her briefcase sat in the corner of the home office. Expensive leather. A birthday gift from 2 years ago, when things were still good between us. Or when I thought they were. The insurance card was in the front pocket, right where it should have been all along. But underneath it, something else. A plastic badge holder, conference lanyard, red with a clip. I pulled it out. 2024 National Anesthesia Equipment Summit, Miami, March 14 to 17. Becca's name printed on the badge. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, Pediatric Surgery, Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I remembered this trip. She'd been excited about it. New techniques in anesthesia management for pediatric cardiac surgery. She'd called me twice from there, once to say she'd landed safely, once to complain about how exhausting the conference sessions were. "Going to bed early tonight," she'd said. "These presentations are draining." Inside the badge holder, a hotel key card, Fontainebleau, Miami Beach, room 1847, and a receipt. Folded in half, I unfolded it. Room service, March 15th. Order time, 11:47 p.m. 2 orders of filet mignon, truffle fries, chocolate soufflé, and a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, $240. Party of 2. I pulled out my phone, opened the calendar app, March 15th. The night she'd called me to say she was exhausted, going to bed early. I set the receipt down, picked up her briefcase again. The side pocket had her phone charger, and her work phone, the one she usually kept with her. Why would she leave her work phone at home? I pressed the power button. It lit up, no password. She'd never bothered with one on this phone. Said it was too annoying when she needed to take urgent calls from the hospital. Text messages, emails, calendar, everything from work, and photos. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The camera roll was mostly surgical images, patient charts, medical conference slides, scrolling back to March. There. Becca at a hotel bar, hair down, wearing the black dress I'd never seen before, smiling at the camera, and beside her, arm around her waist, a man. Tall, dark hair, laughing. Next photo. Same man, same night. They're holding champagne glasses, toasting something. Next photo. His hand on her back, her head tilted toward him. The body language unmistakable. My chest tightened. I kept scrolling. More photos. Different locations around the hotel. The pool. The terrace overlooking the ocean. Her in a sundress I didn't recognize. In every photo, she looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy. I couldn't remember the last time she'd looked at me like that. I set the phone down, picked up the conference schedule that was also in her briefcase. March 15th, the day of the room service receipt. The day she said she was going to bed early. Advanced pediatric cardiac techniques, panel discussion. Scheduled for March 16th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. The session she'd specifically told me she was attending. It wasn't even scheduled until the next day. She lied about where she was. She lied about what she was doing. She lied about being alone. I pulled the hotel receipt toward me again, looked at it more carefully. The room number, 1847, charge to guest R. Hayes. But the champagne, the 2 steaks, party of 2. Who was the second person? I zoomed in on the photo. The man with his arm around her, tried to see if there was anything identifying. A name tag, a badge, anything. And then I saw it. On his shirt, embroidered logo, small but visible if you knew to look. Cryomed Anesthesia Systems, medical device sales rep. at an anesthesia equipment conference, my wife, and a vendor. I sat back in the chair. The office suddenly felt too small, the walls too close. 8 months ago, March 2024. 8 months, and I had no idea. How much more had I missed? Tuesday night. Becca's pager sat on the kitchen counter. She'd left it behind that morning. Accidentally, she'd said, rushing out the door for early rounds. I'll just use my cell. Can you bring it to the hospital later if you get a chance? I'd said yes. Of course I'd said yes. That's what husbands do. But the pager sat there all day, and at 6 p.m. it beeped. I was making dinner, pasta, something simple. The pager screen lit up, new message, from a number I didn't recognize. 847-C5-092. Miss you already. I stared at the screen. The message glowed in the dim kitchen light. The pager beeped again. Same number. Tonight was amazing. When can I see you? My hand tightened around the counter edge. Another beep. Becca, are you there? Did you forget your pager again? I picked up the device. Standard issue hospital pager. Black plastic. Worn corners. Asset tag. NH7823. I'd seen Becca clip it to her scrubs 1,000 times. The weight of it in my palm felt heavier than it should. I pulled out my phone, opened Becca's work calendar that we shared, the family one, so I'd know her surgery schedule, so I'd know when not to expect her home. Thursday, 2 days ago, calendar said, on call, available. No surgeries listed. I pulled up the hospital's internal system on my laptop. I have access as chief of ER, cross-departmental scheduling, so we can coordinate trauma cases, so we know which surgeons are available. Thursday, pediatric surgery or schedule. Dr. Rebecca Hayes. No cases scheduled, no emergency surgeries logged. So, where was she Thursday night when this person texted, "Tonight was amazing," at 11:47 p.m.? The pager beeped again. Call me when you can. G. Grant Pearson. I set the pager down like it had burned me. The pasta water boiled over. I didn't move to stop it. Wednesday afternoon, I just finished a department meeting, budget reviews, staffing requests, the administrative side of being chief that never quite feels like medicine. Linda caught me in the hallway outside my office. Dr. Hayes, do you have a minute? Her voice had that tone, the one that means this isn't about work, not really. Of course, come in. She closed the door behind us, stood there for a moment, her hands fidgeting with her badge lanyard. 20 years we'd worked together. Linda didn't fidget. This is awkward, she started. Just say it, Linda. I've been debating whether to tell you this for weeks, months maybe, and I kept telling myself it wasn't my business, that maybe I was seeing things that weren't there, that maybe... Linda. She took a breath. I've seen Dr. Rebecca with someone, multiple times, in the cafeteria, in the parking garage, always during her breaks, always the same person. My chest went cold. Who? A sales rep, Cryomed, I think. Tall guy, dark hair. They seemed close. Too close. At first I thought maybe they were just friends, colleagues, you know? But the way they looked at each other, the way she laughed with him. And then, last week, she stopped. Her face said she didn't want to continue. Tell me. Last week I saw them in Stairwell C, the one between the OR wing and the cafeteria. His hand was on her back, and she was leaning into him. And I looked away because I felt like I was intruding on something private, something that shouldn't be happening in a hospital stairwell. The room tilted. I sat down at my desk. How long? My voice came out rough. I first noticed them maybe 6 months ago, but Nathan, I think it's been longer than that. The way they acted, the way they moved around each other, they had a rhythm, like they'd done this before, many times before. 6 months. She'd known for 6 months and tried to spare me. Linda, how long have people been talking? She looked at me with such sadness. Nathan, at least 6 months. I'm so sorry you're the last to find out. The last to find out. In my own hospital, where I'm chief, where 3,200 employees walk the halls every day, where I teach residents to see what others miss. And I'd miss the most obvious diagnosis of all. Who else knows? I don't know how many people for sure, but it's not a secret, not anymore. I've heard whispers in the cafeteria, seen people stop talking when she walks by. Last week, one of the surgical nurses made a comment about Dr. Hayes really dedicating herself to vendor relations. A bitter laugh escaped me. Vendor relations? I'm sorry, Nathan. I should have told you sooner. I didn't know how, and I kept hoping I was wrong. You're not wrong. I pulled the hospital bill from my desk drawer, the one I'd been carrying around for days like evidence, like proof. Look at line 4. Linda leaned over. Read it. Her face went pale. Grant Pearson, she whispered. That's him. That's the sales rep. Nathan, she listed him as her emergency contact. Instead of me, her husband. Oh, God. Linda sank into the chair across from my desk. Nathan, that means if something had happened to her, if she died during treatment, the hospital would have called him first. He would have been the one to make medical decisions. He would have been next of kin. I know what it means, Linda. We sat there in silence. Outside my office, the hospital hummed with its usual chaos. Pages overhead, gurney wheels squeaking, distant beeping of monitors, all the sounds of healing, of saving lives, of medicine working the way it's supposed to. And inside this office, my life was disintegrating. What are you going to do? Linda asked quietly. I don't know yet. But I was lying. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to find out everything. I was going to gather every piece of evidence. I was going to approach this like a diagnosis. What are the presenting symptoms? Late nights, changed passwords, new clothes I'd never seen, defensive when questioned, phone left at home, pager forgotten. A man's name where mine should be. The pattern was clear. I'd just been too afraid to see it. If you've ever been the last person to know something everyone else already saw, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, just type invisible in the comments. That moment when you realize you were blind to what was right in front of you. You're not alone in that. Saturday morning, home office, coffee cold in my mug, the quarterly equipment purchase report spread across my desk. This was supposed to be routine. Review expenditures, sign off on department orders, file everything away. Boring administrative work that came with being chief. But something caught my eye. Line item 47. Pediatric Surgery Department. Cryomed Anesthesia Systems. Advanced Monitoring Equipment Package. $340,000. I scrolled through the digital files. Cryomed wasn't our standard vendor. We had always used MedTech solutions for anesthesia equipment. Better pricing, better service contracts, better performance metrics. So, why had pediatric surgery switched? I clicked on the purchase requisition form, scanned down to the signature line. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, Chief of Pediatric Surgery, requisitioning physician. And there, in the margin, in Becca's handwriting, per G, Pearson recommendation. G. Pearson, Grant Pearson. My hands went still on the keyboard. I pulled up the vendor performance reports. Cryomed equipment, purchased 8 months ago. April 2024, right after the Miami conference. Performance rating, below expectations. Multiple maintenance calls, 2 equipment failures during procedures. Backup systems required. But we'd paid $340,000 for it. I did the math in my head. Standard commission for medical device sales is around 10 to 15%. On a contract this size, Grant would have made $45,000, give or take. This wasn't just an affair anymore. I picked up my phone, called the hospital purchasing department. Saturday, but someone always answered. Purchasing, this is Marcus. Marcus, this is Dr. Hayes, Chief of ER. I need information about a contract. Cryomed Anesthesia Systems, purchased by Pediatric Surgery in April. Oh, the Cryomed order. Yeah, that one raised some flags internally. What kind of flags? Well, Dr. Hayes, your wife, she pushed it through pretty fast, bypassed our usual vendor evaluation process, said it was urgent, that she needed the equipment for a new surgical protocol. We flagged it as unusual, but she's chief of pediatric surgery, so we processed it. And the equipment performance? A pause. Between you and me, it's been terrible. We've had more service calls on that equipment in 8 months than we usually have in 3 years. But when we suggested switching back to MedTech, Dr. Hayes said no, said she was confident the issues would resolve. I thanked him and hung up. $340,000. inferior equipment, patient care compromised, and Grant Pearson made $45,000 in commission. Becca had used her position to funnel hospital money to her lover's company. That's not just an affair. That's fraud. That's conflict of interest. That's potentially federal anti-kickback law violation. And I have to report it. Monday morning, my office, 8:15, a knock at my door. Dr. Hayes, Tom Rodriguez, hospital security director, tall, former Chicago PD, takes his job seriously. Tom, come in. He closed the door behind him, set a thick stack of papers on my desk. I need to show you something. The hospital's opening an investigation. Investigation into what? Conflict of interest, vendor relationships. The Cryomed purchase raised red flags with risk management. They asked me to pull visitor logs for the past 18 months. He slid the stack toward me. Computer printout. Green bar paper with perforated edges. 87 pages. This is every visitor badge issued to medical device reps during that time. We track everything. Name, company, badge number, floor accessed, time in, time out. I looked at the top page, highlighted entries in yellow. Grant Pearson, Cryomed Anesthesia Systems, badge number V08847. Tom pointed to the highlighted lines. 47 visits, over 16 months. I flipped through the pages. March 2024, April, May, June. Every month, multiple times per month. Where did he go? 8th floor, pediatric surgery wing, almost exclusively. Tom pulled out another sheet. I cross-referenced with OR schedules. Every single visit corresponds to a gap in Dr. Rebecca Hayes' surgical schedule. Between cases, lunch breaks, end of shift. The pages rustled in my hands. The printer ink smelled fresh. Someone had just printed this morning. Tom, why are you showing me this? He met my eyes. Because risk management is taking this to the ethics committee, and you should know before the formal investigation starts. Investigation of my wife. Investigation of a potential vendor conflict of interest. Dr. Hayes, I want you to know I didn't request this investigation. I'm just following orders. But, yeah, it's about your wife's relationship with this rep. 47 visits. Everyone during Becca's schedule gaps. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned, systematic. Meetings scheduled around her surgical cases. Nathan, Tom's voice softened. He never called me Nathan at work. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. Everyone knew before me. Not everyone. But enough people noticed that risk management got anonymous complaints, multiple complaints, about Dr. Hayes and the Cryomed rep, about the equipment purchase, about them being seen together in ways that looked inappropriate. I set the papers down. My hands were steady. Emergency room training, compartmentalize, deal with the crisis, process the emotion later. When does the ethics committee meet? Thursday, 2 p.m. You'll probably be called as a witness. You're listed on the equipment requisition approval chain. I never approved that purchase. Your electronic signature is on the file. Tom, I didn't sign off on that. I would have remembered $340,000. He pulled out another document. Purchase approval chain. My electronic signature. Dated April 15th, 2024. But I was in Boston that week. Emergency medicine conference. I couldn't have signed anything. Someone used my credentials, I said quietly, or auto-signed using your approval parameters. Either way, the ethics committee is going to want to know how a department chief's husband approved a contract that benefits his wife's. He trailed off. Her lover, I finished. You can say it, Tom. Everyone else apparently has. He gathered the papers, left copies on my desk. I'm sorry, Nathan. I really am. After he left, I sat there, staring at those 87 pages, 47 visits, each one documented, time-stamped, logged by the hospital's own security system. Evidence, undeniable, institutional. The presenting symptoms were right there. I just hadn't known to look at the visitor logs. Tuesday, lunch break. I was grabbing coffee from the cafeteria when I saw her. Olivia, my daughter, 27 years old, second-year resident in internal medicine, wearing her white coat with Dr. O. Hayes embroidered on the pocket. She was standing by the coffee station, frozen. Two other residents nearby, I recognized them from grand rounds, were talking in low voices, not quite whispering, but clearly not wanting to be overheard. Hayes' mom, right? With that cryomed rep? Yeah, I heard they've been hooking up for like a year. Everyone in surgery knows. God, that's so awkward. You think Dr. O. Hayes knows? Like, do you tell someone their mom's having an affair? I wouldn't want to be the one. Olivia's coffee cup slipped, hit the counter, liquid splashed. The residents looked up, saw her. Their faces went pale. Dr. Hayes, But Olivia was already walking away, fast, head down. I caught up to her in the hallway. Olivia. Not now, Dad. Liv? She turned. Her eyes were red. Is it true? We stood there in the hallway. Staff walked past. Patients, visitors. The hospital moved around us like we were stones in a river. Can we go somewhere private? Is it true? I took her arm gently, guided her toward my office, closed the door. She wouldn't sit. Dad, tell me what I just heard isn't true. Tell me Mom isn't... Her voice cracked. Tell me everyone isn't talking about our family. Tell me I'm not going to walk into rounds tomorrow and have everyone staring at me, wondering if I knew, wondering if I helped cover it up. Olivia, because that's what they'll think. They already think I only got my residency because of you and Mom being attending physicians here. They already whisper about nepotism. And now they're going to think I knew Mom was sleeping with some sales rep and I helped hide it, or I benefited from it somehow, or... Sit down. I don't want to sit down. Olivia Grace Hayes. Sit. She sat, but her hands were shaking. I pulled out the hospital bill, showed her line 4. I found out 5 days ago. She stared at the paper. Emergency contact, Grant Pearson. Her voice went hollow. Not you. Not me. Who is he? Medical sales rep, cryomed. Your mother and he have been involved for at least 16 months, probably longer. 16 months? Olivia looked up at me. Dad, I was home for Christmas last year. Everything seemed fine. You and Mom seemed... I thought you were happy. So did I. Does she know that you know? We had a conversation. She denied most of it. But the evidence is pretty clear. Evidence? Dad, what... I showed her the visitor logs, the conference photos I'd found, the pager messages. With each piece of evidence, Olivia's face got paler. Oh my God, she whispered. Dad, everyone at this hospital knows. Everyone. And I'm just finding out now. How am I supposed to go to rounds tomorrow? How am I supposed to work in the same building where everyone is gossiping about my family? You show up, you do your job, you take care of patients. That's what we do. I can't. Her voice broke. Dad, I can't face them. They already think I don't belong here. My last evaluation, Dr. Richardson said my clinical judgment has been inconsistent. He said I seem distracted. And I have been distracted because I've been sensing something wrong at home. Something off with you and Mom, but I couldn't figure out what. And now I know what it is. And now everyone else knows too. She stood up, paced to the window. Her shoulders shook. Olivia, they think I got my job because of you and Mom. Now they think I knew about the affair. How am I supposed to save lives when I can't even save my own reputation? When every time I walk into the cafeteria, people stop talking. When every time I introduce myself, they think, oh, that's Hayes' daughter, the one whose mother is sleeping with the equipment vendor. I went to her, put my hand on her shoulder. You earned your residency, you earned your white coat. Your performance has nothing to do with your parents' marriage. But it does. She turned to face me, tears streaming. It does, because I've been missing things, Dad. Last week I almost missed a diagnosis. Pneumonia presenting atypically. Dr. Richardson caught it before I ordered the wrong antibiotics, but I missed it. And if he hadn't been checking my work, I could have hurt that patient. I'm becoming a bad doctor because I can't focus. Because something at home felt wrong and I couldn't figure out what. You're not a bad doctor. How do you know? You're my father. You're biased. I'm also chief of emergency medicine. I see residents every day. I know a good one when I see one. And you're good, Olivia. I was good, past tense. She wiped her eyes. God, Dad, what are you going to do? I don't know yet. But that was a lie. I knew exactly what I had to do. I just didn't know if I had the strength to do it. Thursday, 2 p.m., hospital conference room, ethics committee meeting, 5 physicians, CMO Dr. Patricia Wu, hospital attorney Grace Chen, Tom Rodriguez and Becca and me. We sat on opposite sides of the table. She wouldn't look at me. Grace Chen opened her laptop. Thank you all for being here. This committee has been asked to review a potential conflict of interest regarding equipment procurement and vendor relationships. She pulled up a document on the large monitor. Purchase requisition form, $340,000. Becca's signature. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, can you explain your relationship with Grant Pearson of Cryomed Anesthesia Systems? He's a sales representative. We have a professional relationship. Purely professional? Yes. Grace Chen clicked to the next slide. Visitor badge logs, 47 entries highlighted. Mr. Pearson visited Northwestern Memorial 47 times over 16 months. Each visit was to the 8th floor during gaps in your surgical schedule. Can you explain why a sales representative would need to meet with you specifically rather than with the purchasing department? He was consulting on equipment specifications. I needed his technical expertise. 47 consultations? It was complex equipment. Grace clicked again. Dr. Hayes, we need to show you footage from hospital security cameras. The room went very still. Grace inserted a USB drive into her laptop. The monitor filled with surveillance footage. Date stamp. April 23rd, 2:15 p.m. Camera angle from above. Stairwell C. 2 people, embracing, kissing. Unmistakably Becca. Unmistakably a man I now recognized from the conference photos. Grant Pearson. The footage played for 47 seconds, then stopped. Dr. Hayes, Grace said quietly. Were you on duty that day? Becca's face had drained of all color. I was between surgeries. Between surgeries, you were engaged in intimate contact with a medical device vendor on hospital property during work hours. Grace clicked through more files. We have 22 additional clips spanning 5 months, all showing similar interactions. One of the ethics committee members leaned forward. Dr. Hayes, did Mr. Pearson have any influence over your decision to purchase Cryomed equipment? No, I selected that equipment based on its technical merits. Technical merits? Another committee member pulled out a report. The equipment has had 7 maintenance failures in 8 months. Performance rating is below acceptable standards. We've spent an additional $50,000 in service calls. Why didn't you switch back to our previous vendor? Silence. Dr. Wu, the CMO, spoke up. Rebecca, you've been an exemplary surgeon for 20 years, but we have documentation of a personal relationship with a vendor whose products you purchase for the hospital. That's a clear conflict of interest, and given the equipment's poor performance, we have concerns about patient safety being compromised. I would never compromise patient safety. Becca's voice shook. But you did. Grace Chen's tone was gentle but firm. You approved equipment that underperforms because the vendor is someone you're personally involved with. You used hospital funds to benefit that vendor, and you did it without disclosing your relationship. Dr. Nathan Hayes, Grace turned to me. Did you know about the Cryomed purchase? No, I was in Boston when the approval went through. My electronic signature was used, but I didn't authorize it. Were you aware of your wife's relationship with Mr. Pearson? Not until last week. Grace nodded, made a note. Thank you for your cooperation. She turned back to Becca. Dr. Hayes, this committee will make its recommendations to the hospital board within 7 days. In the meantime, you're required to recuse yourself from all vendor decisions and equipment purchases. Do you understand? Becca nodded mutely. This meeting is adjourned. People filed out. Becca left quickly without looking at anyone. I stayed in my chair, staring at the blank monitor where those 47 seconds had played. My wife, kissing another man, in the hospital where we both worked, documented, time-stamped, undeniable. Grace Chen approached. Dr. Hayes, I need to tell you, this isn't a personal vendetta. The hospital has liability here. If the vendor relationship influenced medical decisions, we could face legal exposure. I understand. We're not here to judge personal relationships, but when those relationships affect patient care and institutional integrity, we have to act. I looked at her. Grace, is this going to affect my position? No, you cooperated fully. You disclosed everything. You're a witness, not a subject. She paused. But Nathan, I want you to know, as hospital counsel, I have to tell you that you have grounds for divorce. Strong grounds. The evidence we've gathered here can be used in family court, and given the financial implications, the fraud, the conflict of interest, you'd be protected. You're advising me to divorce my wife. I'm advising you that the hospital has documented evidence that would support your case if you choose to file. She left. I sat there alone in the conference room. The USB drive still sat on the table. Evidence. 47 seconds of kissing. 22 additional clips. Truth, digitized and archived. 6 p.m., hospital parking garage. I was heading to my car when I saw her. Becca, leaning against my driver's side door, arms crossed. We need to talk. I don't think we do. Nathan, please. This has gotten completely out of control. Out of control? I stopped 3 feet away. Becca, you had an affair with a vendor and used your position to funnel hospital money to his company. This didn't get out of control. This was already out of control. We're just finally acknowledging it. I made a mistake. Stop. Stop calling it a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. Mistakes are one-time errors in judgment. This was 16 months of deliberate choices, 47 documented meetings, $340,000, a baby, listing him as your emergency contact instead of your husband. Those aren't mistakes. Those are patterns. Her face crumbled. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. What did you think would happen? You meet a charming sales rep at a conference. You sleep with him. You fall for him. You steer a massive contract to his company. You put his name where mine should be on medical documents. What exactly did you think the outcome would be? I thought... She stopped, started again. I thought I could have both. I thought I could... Have both? Becca, you can't have both. That's not how marriage works. Our marriage was already dead, Nathan. Be honest. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you looked at me like you actually saw me? I saw you just fine. I saw you lying to me for 16 months. You were always at the hospital, always with patients, always teaching residents. I was lonely. So you cheated. And now you want me to take responsibility for your choices because I was working? I'm an ER chief, Becca. People die when I'm not there. That's my job. And my job is to be the perfect surgeon's wife? To wait at home while you save everyone else? Your job is to not sleep with vendors and commit fraud. My voice echoed in the parking garage. I lowered it. Your job was to be honest, to tell me if you were unhappy, to work on our marriage instead of blowing it up. I loved you. Her voice cracked. I did love you, Nathan. No, you loved what I could give you. Stability, status, a daughter, a reputation as the perfect medical couple. But you didn't love me, because people who love each other don't do this. That's not fair. It wasn't one mistake, Becca. It was 14 months of lies. It was $47,000 of fraud. It was giving confidential information to a competitor. It was mocking me in text messages to your subordinate lover. It was making our daughter wonder if she earned her job. It was demanding I pay hospital bills for injuries you got at his apartment. It wasn't one mistake. It was 10,000 choices to betray everyone who loved you. She was crying now. I'm pregnant. Doesn't that matter? It matters that you created a child with someone who isn't your husband. It matters that Grant needs to step up and take responsibility, but it doesn't change what you did. What are you going to do? I looked at her. This woman I'd been married to for 23 years. This stranger. I'm going to file for divorce. Nathan, I'm going to use the hospital's evidence. I'm going to document everything. And I'm going to make sure our daughter knows that none of this is her fault. Please don't do this. I'm not doing this, Becca. You did this. 16 months ago, every time you met with Grant, every time you lied to me, every time you chose him over us, you did this. I walked past her, got in my car. She stood there in the garage, crying. I drove away, and I didn't look back. 11 p.m., hospital chapel. I wasn't supposed to be here. My shift had ended hours ago, but Linda had texted, "Olivia's in the chapel. She needs you." The chapel was dark, just a few small lights near the altar, stained glass windows barely visible in the night. Olivia sat in the front pew, still in her scrubs, her pager silent on the bench beside her. "Liv?" She looked up. Her face was blotchy from crying. I sat next to her, said nothing, just sat. After a long moment, I lost my first patient tonight. My chest tightened. Young mother, 29, Came in with what looked like the flu, shortness of breath, fever. I ordered fluids, Tylenol, told her to rest, standard protocol. Her voice was hollow. She coded in the waiting room 40 minutes later. Cardiac arrest. We worked her for 30 minutes. She never came back. Live. Autopsy's going to show it was myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, presence like the flu. Easy to miss, except I should have caught it. Dr. Richardson told me to always check for cardiac symptoms with respiratory complaints. Always. And I didn't. Because I was distracted. Because I couldn't stop thinking about Mom and the gossip and everyone staring at me. Olivia, you're not... She has 2 kids, Dad, 6 and 4. I met them. They were in the waiting room. Coloring. The 4-year-old showed me a picture she drew. And now those kids don't have a mother. That's not your fault, isn't it? She turned to me. Dr. Richardson pulled me aside after, showed me my mid-rotation evaluation. My test scores are down. Clinical judgment, inconsistent. Professionalism, needs improvement. He didn't say it directly, but I could see it in his face. He's worried about me. He thinks I'm not focused, and he's right, I'm not. This week has been... Last week, Dad. Last week I missed a diagnosis. DVT presenting as just leg pain. Patient was on birth control, recent flight, classic risk factors. Dr. Richardson caught it before I sent her home. Before she threw a clot to her lungs. Before she died. He caught my mistake. But what if he hadn't been there? What if I'd been on my own? She put her face in her hands. I'm becoming a bad doctor, and I don't know how to stop it, because every time I try to focus on a patient, I think about Mom. I think about the gossip. I think about everyone wondering if I knew, if I helped, if I'm just as corrupt as... She stopped. Olivia, I worked so hard to get here, Dad. So hard. Medical school, boards, residency applications. I wanted to earn this, to prove I deserved my white coat, and now everyone thinks it's fake. Everyone thinks I got here because of nepotism. Because Mom pulled strings. Because you approved my application. You earned every... How do I know that? She looked at me with such pain. How do I know I'm actually good? Or if I've just been coasting on my parents' reputations, and now one of those reputations is destroyed, and the other... She swallowed. Dad, are you going to be okay? I'll be fine. Don't lie to me. Everyone's been lying to me. Don't you lie too. I took a breath. I'm not okay, but I will be. How do you know? Because I have to be. Because I have patients depending on me. Because I have residents to teach. Because I have you. I turned to her. And because staying in something that's killing me isn't brave. It's just slow suicide. Are you getting divorced? Yes. She nodded slowly. Good. Good. Dad, I've known something was wrong for over a year. The way you looked at each other. Or didn't look at each other. The way you stayed late at the hospital, even when you didn't have shifts. The way Mom was always running errands or meeting colleagues or attending conferences. I'm not blind. I just didn't want to see it. I'm sorry you had to. I lost a patient tonight. Her voice broke. Mrs. Patterson, cardiac arrest, 2 kids, 6 and 4. And you know what I thought while I was doing CPR? I thought, at least they have a dad who will stay. Because I don't know if I have that. I don't know if you're going to fall apart. If you're going to leave the hospital. If you're going to become someone different. And I can't lose you too, Dad. I can't. I pulled her into a hug. She sobbed against my shoulder. You're not losing me, I said. I promise. How can you promise that? You promised Mom in sickness and in health, and she broke it. How do I trust promises anymore? And there it was. The real question. The one I didn't have an answer for. I don't know how to make you trust promises again, but I can show you every day by showing up, by being here, by not abandoning you even when things are hard. What if that's not enough? Then we figure it out together. But live. You're not becoming a bad doctor. You had a bad week, a terrible week. You missed a diagnosis, but your attending caught it. That's what attendings are for. And tonight, you lost a patient. But that patient had a disease that's notoriously difficult to catch. Myocarditis looks exactly like the flu until it doesn't. And then it's too late. But if I'd been more focused, even focused, you might have missed it. That's why it's called medicine and not certainty. We do our best. We use every tool we have. And sometimes patients still die. And that's not your fault. That's the nature of the work. She pulled back, wiped her eyes. I want to be good at this. I want to deserve to be here. You do deserve it. You deserve it because you care this much. Because a patient's death breaks your heart. Because you question yourself. Because you're still learning. That's what makes a good doctor. We sat in silence for a while. The chapel felt peaceful, despite everything. "What are you going to do about Mom?" she asked finally. "I'm going to file for divorce. I'm going to use the hospital's evidence. And I'm going to protect you from as much of this as I can. You can't protect me from gossip, Dad. No, but I can show you how to survive it, how to hold your head up, how to do your job even when people are talking, how to be a good doctor even when your personal life is a disaster." "Is that what you're doing, surviving?" "Right now, yes, but surviving is enough, for now." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm scared. Me too, Liv. Me too. If you were Nathan right now, knowing what you know, would you stay in the marriage to preserve the family? Hope Olivia recovers on her own? If that's your choice, type "stay" in the comments. Or would you file for divorce immediately to protect your daughter's medical career, even though it means public scandal? If that's your choice, type "leave." What would you do? Because there's no easy answer here. Both choices have consequences. Both choices cost something. And I had about 10 seconds to make my decision. 4A, I swore, the ER was quiet. That rare lull between the drunken injuries of midnight and the chest pains of dawn. Linda and I were restocking the trauma bay. Gauze packages, IV supplies, medication vials clicking into the crash cart drawers. Routine work, the kind that lets your mind wander. "When's the last time you ate?" Linda asked. I had to think about it. "Yesterday. Maybe." "When's the last time you slept more than 3 hours?" "Linda, Nathan." She stopped organizing supplies, turned to face me. "You're running on empty, and eventually you're going to make a mistake, or you're going to collapse, and I can't let that happen." "I'm fine." "You're not fine." Her voice was gentle but firm. "You've lost weight. You're not sleeping. You're functioning on adrenaline and coffee, and I've known you long enough to see when you're breaking." I set down the package of gauze, leaned against the counter. "I don't know how to do this, Linda. I don't know how to save lives during the day and watch my life fall apart at night. I don't know how to be the chief who has all the answers when I can't even figure out my own marriage." "You're allowed to not have answers. I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to diagnose problems, fix them, but I can't fix this." Linda moved closer. "Nathan, listen to me. You spend every day saving everyone else. Let someone save you for once." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do. You need to take care of yourself. You need to eat, sleep. Maybe talk to someone who isn't me or your daughter. Maybe take a few days off." "I can't take time off. We're short-staffed." "We can manage. We always manage." She paused. "Nathan, you keep saying Becca betrayed you, but you're betraying yourself by not taking care of yourself." I looked at her, this woman who'd worked beside me for 12 years, who'd seen me at my best and my worst, who'd never judged, never pushed until now. I keep thinking, my voice came out rough. I keep thinking about my brother. Did I ever tell you about him? You mentioned you lost someone young. That's why you became a doctor. He was 14. I was 16. Appendicitis. Should have been routine. But the ER doctor missed it, sent him home with instructions to rest. By the time Mom brought him back 12 hours later, it had ruptured. Sepsis, multi-organ failure. He died 3 days later. Linda's hand found mine. I became a doctor because I couldn't save my brother, because someone missed the diagnosis, because I was 16 and useless and watching him die and there was nothing I could do. I took a shaky breath, and now I can't save my marriage, and I feel like that 16-year-old again, useless, watching something die, unable to stop it. Nathan, Linda squeezed my hand. You didn't fail your brother, a doctor failed your brother, and you didn't fail your marriage. Becca failed your marriage. You're not responsible for other people's mistakes. But I'm a diagnostician. I see what everyone else misses. That's my job. And I miss the most obvious signs in my own life. Late nights, change passwords, new perfume, defensive behavior. Those are presenting symptoms. Classic presenting symptoms. I teach residents to see patterns. And I saw them in Becca. I just didn't want to diagnose it. You're not her doctor, Nathan. You're her husband. You were supposed to trust her. That's not a flaw. That's love. She betrayed that trust. That's on her, not you. A monitor beeped in the next bay. Normal rhythm. Someone stable. Someone we'd saved. Mrs. Chen went home yesterday, Linda said. The cardiac arrest you treated last week. Full recovery. And Tommy Garcia, the motorcycle accident. He's doing physical therapy, walking again. And 17 other people this month that you saved. 17 people who are alive because you were here. Because you didn't miss their diagnoses. But Olivia is struggling because she's watching you struggle. She needs to see you take care of yourself. She needs to see that it's okay to admit you're hurting. That it's okay to get help. That survival doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. I felt something crack in my chest. That wall I'd been holding up since I saw Grant Pearson's name on that hospital bill. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. One day at a time, one shift at a time, one patient at a time, the same way you do everything else. And what if I can't? What if I file for divorce and it destroys everything? What if Olivia never recovers? What if I lose my job for not reporting the conflict of interest sooner? What if... Nathan, Linda's voice cut through my spiral. You can't control all of that. You can only control what you do next. And what you do next is take care of yourself, talk to someone, a therapist, a friend, anyone, get some sleep, eat a real meal, and then show up tomorrow and save more lives. I looked at her. How did you get so wise? I've been watching you be strong for everyone else for 12 years. I figured someone should be strong for you. The trauma alert sounded. Incoming patient. Car accident. ETA 4 minutes. Linda squeezed my hand once more. We've got this. But after this shift, you're going home. You're eating. You're sleeping. That's an order from your nurse manager. I outrank you. Not when it comes to taking care of my chief. She smiled. Now, let's go save a life. We moved into position. The familiar choreography. My hands steady. My mind clear. For the next 20 minutes, nothing existed except the patient, the injuries, the protocols, the medicine. And I realized this was how I'd survive. Not by having all the answers, but by doing the next right thing. One patient at a time, one decision at a time, starting with the decision to file for divorce. Friday morning, Dr. Jamal Richardson's office. He'd called me, said he needed to talk about Olivia, said it was important. I sat across from his desk. Cardiology textbooks lined the shelves behind him. Diplomas, awards, 44 years old. One of the best cardiologists at Northwestern. Olivia's supervising attending. Nathan, I'm going to be direct. He slid papers across the desk. These are Olivia's mid-rotation evaluation forms. I picked them up. 8 pages. Official residency program letterhead. Numeric ratings. Narrative comments. Clinical knowledge, 710, down from 910 previous rotation. Patient care, 610, down from 910. Professionalism, 710, down from 1010. The narrative section was worse. Dr. Hayes demonstrates declining performance. Test scores down 15% from previous rotation. Clinical judgment inconsistent. Missed key finding on DVT case. Attending caught before discharge. Seems distracted and emotionally fragile. Recommend counseling and close supervision. October 15th, 2025. Dr. Jamal Richardson's signature. My hands trembled holding the papers. Nathan, I need you to know I don't want to put her on academic probation, but if her performance doesn't improve, I won't have a choice. Academic probation would destroy her career, which is why I'm telling you now, so we can intervene before it gets to that point. He leaned forward. Nathan, what's going on at home? We're having some family issues. I figured. Olivia's one of my best residents. Was one of my best. She's smart, compassionate, thorough. But the past 2 months she's been different, distracted, missing things she would have caught easily before. And after what happened with Mrs. Patterson, the cardiac arrest, myocarditis, difficult diagnosis. I don't fault Olivia for missing it, but she's devastated, and she can't afford to be devastated right now. She needs to be focused, sharp, because in 6 months, she'll be running codes on her own, and if she's not ready, patients will die. I set the papers down. What do you suggest? Honestly, Whatever's happening at home needs to be resolved, or at least stabilized, because right now your daughter is drowning, and I'm watching it happen." He paused, considered his next words carefully. "Nathan, I'm going to tell you something I don't talk about. When I was a cardiology fellow, my wife left me for my best friend. Walked out with our 2-year-old daughter, filed for divorce. I tried to hold it together. Pretend everything was fine. Keep working. But my performance suffered. I made mistakes. My mentor sat me down and said, 'Jamal, you can't save hearts if yours is broken. Get help.' What did you do? I took 2 weeks off, went to therapy, figured out how to function as a single father and a fellow, and eventually I got custody of my daughter and finished my fellowship and became a cardiologist." He met my eyes. "But I couldn't do any of that until I admitted I needed help. I don't know if I can take time off right now." "Nathan?" His voice was firm, kind. "Your daughter is suffering, not because of her performance, because she's watching you suffer and pretend you're fine. She needs to see you admit you're human, that you're hurting, that you're going to get help, and that you're going to survive this. If I file for divorce, the whole hospital will know. It'll be headlines. Or it'll be Chief of ER shows integrity under impossible circumstances. Nathan, I've watched you for 10 years. You're the best ER doctor I've ever seen. You know why? Because you know when to keep fighting and when to call time a death. Your marriage flatlined. Call it. Focus on who you can still save, yourself and your daughter." My throat tightened. I feel like I'm failing. Failure is staying in something that's destroying you. Strength is knowing when to let go. A knock at the door. "Dr. Richardson?" His assistant. "Courier delivery. Needs signature." "I'll be right there." He stood. "Nathan, think about what I said. Take the time you need, and talk to Olivia. Tell her it's okay to not be okay right now." He left to sign for the delivery. I sat there holding Olivia's evaluation forms. 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. My brilliant daughter reduced to numbers that didn't reflect who she was. Numbers that showed the collateral damage of Becca's choices. Richardson returned. He was holding a large manila envelope. Official-looking, priority mail. "This is addressed to your attorney," he said, checking the label. "Care of Nathan Hayes, Northwestern Memorial Hospital." I took it. Gene DX Laboratories. The logo embossed on the envelope, gold seal, paternity test results. "Do you want me to stay while you open it?" Richardson asked quietly. I nodded. The seal tore cleanly. Inside, multiple pages. Legal letterhead, official lab reports. I read the summary. Alleged father, Grant Mitchell Pearson. Child, unborn, due June 8th, 2026. Probability of paternity, 99.96%. I set the papers down. Richardson read over my shoulder. "So it's his," he said. "Yeah." At the bottom of the report, a note from the lab. "Testing expedited per client request, Grant Pearson. Results available September 30th, 2025. "He knew," I said. "Grant knew Becca was pregnant a month and a half ago, before I did." "Nathan?" He wanted to know if it was his before deciding whether to stay involved. He wanted to know so he could run if he needed to. Richardson sat down heavily. What a coward. We sat there in silence. 2 doctors, 2 men who'd been betrayed, 2 fathers trying to protect their daughters. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I'm going to file for divorce. I'm going to use every piece of evidence the hospital has gathered. And I'm going to make sure Grant takes responsibility for this child." "Good. And then I'm going to take 2 weeks off, talk to a therapist, figure out how to function without falling apart. Even better. And I'm going to tell Olivia that it's okay, that she's allowed to struggle, that we're going to get through this together." Richardson smiled, sad but genuine. "That's the Nathan Hayes I know, the one who knows when to call time of death and move on to saving who he can." November 22nd, hospital board meeting. 15 board members, CEO, CMO Dr. Patricia Wu, Grace Chen, hospital attorney, outside legal counsel, Tom Rodriguez from security, and the findings from the ethics committee investigation. I sat in the observers section. Becca sat on the opposite side of the room. We hadn't spoken in 3 weeks. Grace Chen stood at the podium. "The ethics committee has completed its investigation into vendor relationships and conflict of interest regarding the cryo-med anesthesia systems purchase." She pulled up slides, visitor logs, surveillance footage timestamps, equipment performance reports, purchase requisition forms. Our findings: Dr. Rebecca Hayes engaged in a personal relationship with Grant Pearson, a sales representative for Cryomed, beginning approximately 18 months ago. During this relationship, Dr. Hayes authorized the purchase of $340,000 in Cryomed equipment without proper vendor evaluation or disclosure of her personal relationship. A board member raised his hand. What was the equipment's performance? Below acceptable standards, 7 maintenance failures in 8 months, $50,000 in additional service costs, 2 instances where backup equipment was required during surgery. Grace's voice was steady, professional. Patient safety was compromised. Murmurs around the room. Additionally, Grace continued, surveillance footage confirms that Dr. Hayes and Mr. Pearson engaged in intimate contact on hospital property during work hours on 22 documented occasions. The CEO leaned forward. Ms. Chen, what are your recommendations? The outside counsel has reviewed all evidence. Their conclusion: Dr. Hayes violated hospital conflict of interest policy, equipment procurement procedures, and professional conduct standards. They recommend termination for cause. Silence. Becca stood. I'd like to speak. The CEO nodded. I made mistakes. I acknowledge that. But I've been a surgeon at this hospital for 20 years. I've saved hundreds of children's lives. One mistake shouldn't erase 2 decades of service. Grace Chen's voice was gentle but firm. Dr. Hayes, this isn't one mistake. It's a pattern of behavior over 18 months that compromised patient safety and institutional integrity. The board must consider whether continued employment represents unacceptable risk. The board deliberated for 30 minutes. I sat there, waiting. When they returned, the CEO stood. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, after reviewing all evidence and recommendations, the board has made the following decisions. First, your employment with Northwestern Memorial Hospital is terminated effective immediately for cause. Second, you are required to repay $47,000, representing the differential between Cryomed pricing and standard vendor pricing, as well as the additional service costs incurred. Third, your non-compete agreement is enforced. You may not practice at any hospital within 50 miles of Chicago for a period of 3 years. Fourth, a report will be filed with the Illinois State Medical Board regarding the conflict of interest violation. They will determine any impact on your medical license. Fifth, the Cryomed contract is canceled effective immediately. Mr. Grant Pearson is permanently banned from Northwestern Memorial Hospital property. Becca's face went white. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Dr. Nathan Hayes, the CEO continued, the board finds no evidence that you had knowledge of the conflict of interest or vendor relationship prior to risk management's investigation. You cooperated fully and disclosed all information. Your position as Chief of Emergency Medicine is secure. The board commends your professionalism during this difficult situation. Relief washed over me. I'd been holding my breath without realizing it. The CEO looked at the room. This organization is committed to ethical conduct and patient safety. When those standards are violated, there are consequences. This meeting is adjourned. People filed out. Becca left quickly, shoulders hunched, her attorney beside her. Grace Chen approached me. Nathan, I want you to know the board was unanimous. They all agreed termination was appropriate. What happens now? Grant Pearson's company has already terminated his employment. He's been reassigned to Milwaukee territory, but will likely be let go entirely. The paternity test results mean he has legal obligation to the child. His attorney is negotiating terms. And Becca? She'll likely relocate. Seattle, maybe. Somewhere outside the non-compete radius. Her reputation in Chicago is damaged. Several referring physicians have already said they'll no longer send patients to her. I nodded. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, just closure. One more thing, Grace said. The CEO wants to meet with you next week about expanding your role, possibly Executive Vice President of Medical Operations down the line. That's CMO territory. Dr. Wu is planning to retire in 2 years. She's recommended you as her successor. I looked at Grace, tried to process. They want to promote me? They want to reward integrity. You could have covered for your wife. Used your position to bury the investigation. Instead, you cooperated fully. That means something. 6 months later, the trauma bay at 2 a.m., cardiac arrest, 42-year-old male, construction worker, fell from scaffolding. Pulse? Faint. BP 70/40. Get me 2 units ONEG and prep for intubation. I moved on autopilot, but I wasn't alone. Dr. Hayes, breath sounds decreased on the right. Olivia's voice, confident, focused. Pneumothorax? I think so. Show me. She performed the needle decompression, perfect technique, the hiss of air releasing. The patient's oxygen saturation started climbing. Nice work, Dr. Hayes, I said. She looked at me across the gurney, smiled. Learn from the best, Dr. Hayes. The patient stabilized, heart rate steady, breathing regular. We'd saved him. Linda caught my eye from across the bay, gave me a small nod. After we transferred the patient to ICU, Olivia and I walked to the break room. Coffee. The ritual we'd developed over the past 6 months. How are you doing? I asked. Good. Really good, actually. Dr. Richardson's latest evaluation was excellent. All 9s and 10s. He said I'm back to where I should be. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us. She added sugar to her coffee. I heard from Mom last week. Oh? She's in Seattle, working at a smaller hospital. Pediatric surgery, but mostly clinic work. No OR privileges yet. She sounds different. Humbler, maybe. How do you feel about that? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to hate her for what she did, but part of me knows she's my mom and she's trying to rebuild her life. So I'm taking it day by day. That's very mature. I learned it from you. She looked at me. Seriously, Dad. The past 6 months, watching you go to therapy, take care of yourself, be honest about struggling, it taught me more than any lecture could have. Your mom and I both made mistakes. No, she made mistakes. You did your best with impossible circumstances. There's a difference. My pager went off. Another trauma incoming. Duty calls, Olivia said, standing. We walked back toward the trauma bay together. My daughter, my colleague, my partner in saving lives. Hey, Dad? Yeah? You know that saying you taught me? First, do no harm? Of course. I finally understand what it really means. It doesn't mean never hurting anyone. It means not staying in situations that hurt you, not tolerating abuse because you're afraid of causing pain. It means sometimes you have to cut out what's toxic to save the patient. I stopped walking, looked at her. When did you get so wise? I told you, I learned from the best. The trauma alert sounded. Multiple victims, car accident, ETA 3 minutes. Ready? I asked. Always. We moved into position, the monitors, the equipment, the team assembling around us, and as the first gurney rolled through the doors, I heard the steady beep of the heart monitor. That sound that means life. That sound that means we have a chance. The patient's vitals were unstable, critical, but we had skills, we had training, we had each other. Olivia, what are the presenting symptoms? She assessed quickly, confidently. Head trauma, possible internal bleeding, tachycardia, hypotensive. Treatment plan? Secure airway, 2 large bore IVs, fluids wide open. Type and cross for 6 units. CT scan when stable. Perfect, let's move. We worked in sync. Father and daughter. 2 doctors who'd survived their own trauma and come out stronger. The patient's heart monitor beeped erratically, then steadied, then found its rhythm. Stable. Alive. I looked across the gurney at Olivia. Our eyes met. And in that moment, I saw everything we'd been through, everything we'd survived, everything we'd learned. Nice work, Dr. Hayes, I said. Learn from the best, Dr. Hayes. The heart monitor continued its steady beep, that beautiful sound. The sound of life continuing, of healing, of second chances. We finished stabilizing the patient, sent him to surgery, excellent prognosis. Another life saved. Linda approached as we stripped off our gloves. Good work, both of you. That was textbook. Team effort, I said. Always is. She smiled. By the way, Nathan, congratulations. 4. I heard you're the new Executive Vice President of Medical Operations. Effective next month. Olivia's eyes went wide. Dad, you didn't tell me. It just happened this afternoon. Dr. Wu is retiring. She recommended me for the transition role, CMO in 2 years if all goes well. Olivia hugged me. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of us. We did this together. And it was true. Olivia's performance had rebounded. Mine had too. We'd both gone to therapy. Both learned to function during crisis. Both learned that survival doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means being honest about the struggle and showing up anyway. Becca was in Seattle, rebuilding her career, building a relationship with Olivia through phone calls and occasional visits. Not forgiven yet, but no longer hated. Grant was in Milwaukee. His company had let him go. But his sister, unable to have children, had agreed to adopt the baby. Open adoption. Grant would have visitation. The child would grow up in a stable, loving home in Colorado, with extended family who wanted her, who'd planned for her, who'd give her the life she deserved. The divorce had been finalized 4 months ago, relatively amicable thanks to the overwhelming evidence. Becca hadn't contested anything, just wanted it over. And me? I'd learned something important. First, do no harm. Sometimes that means fighting to save what's broken, but sometimes it means having the courage to cut out what's toxic. That's what surgery taught us. That's what medicine taught us. That's what life taught us. You diagnose the problem, you assess whether it can be saved, and if it can't, you call time a death, and you focus on saving who you can. I couldn't save my marriage, but I saved myself, and I saved my daughter, and that's enough. Nathan and Olivia redefined what family means, not who you're born to, but who shows up when everything falls apart. If you've built your own chosen family, or if you've had to walk away from toxic relationships to save yourself, tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear your story, and if this story moved you, hit subscribe. I tell stories about people who found the courage to diagnose what's killing them and chose to live. I'll see you in the next one. The heart monitor continued its steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of life, the sound of healing, the sound of moving forward. One patient at a time, one day at a time, one heartbeat at a time. That's how we survive. That's how we heal. That's how we live.